You're listening to the Artist Athlete Podcast, episode 87. This podcast is dedicated to CIRCUS. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into this world. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna. I'm the host of the Artist Athlete Podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. I don't know about y'all, where you are, but here in Montreal, Quebec, I am already wrapped up in a blanket and there is a nip in the air. It is getting darker sooner, which means summer is coming to an end. And this is my last week on the Circus Talk platform. It's been an amazing summer sharing my little podcast with you all on Circus Talk. Now, don't get it twisted. The Artist Athlete Podcast is not going anywhere. You can still hear stories and interviews every week on Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, the website, theartistathlete.com. You can also go to the YouTube channel. There's a million other places to get the podcast, but Circus Talk, come September, will not be one of them. But I want to thank Kim and the whole Circus Talk team for letting us have a little spot on the platform. Circus Talk, if you don't know about it, is an amazing, international, all-inclusive circus website. They have job postings, they have forums, they have news articles, and they have other amazing podcasts, just like this one, for you to tune into. So go to circustalk.com, and if you're coming here from Circus Talk, find me on theartistathlete.com. And if you're really loving what you're listening to, you want to support the podcast, I got one more website for you, patreon.com/ we're getting technical here, patreon.com/ The Artist Athlete. Patreon is a platform that allows people just like you to give podcasters just like me small amounts of money every month that go toward my hosting services. They go toward my amazing editor, Allison, and some really crazy projects we have coming up. They help me pay my producer, Hannah, and so much more. So if you love what you're listening to, you love the quality, you love the range of guests I have, or you want to get in touch with me and let me know about something you don't like about the podcast, go to patreon.com. Well, if you don't like the podcast, you could probably just email me. But if you love it, patreon.com/ The Artist Athlete, and sign up to become a Patreon today. My guest today is Chantal McCormick. Chantal trained as a dancer and choreographer at the London School of Contemporary Dance. After graduation, she became interested in aerial circus and trained at Circus Base, London. Chantal toured with the established dance and circus companies in the UK from 1999 to 2008. Fidget Feet was founded in 2004 by Chantal and her husband, Jim Daly. Chantal has directed, choreographed, and performed shows with Fidget Feet, including Wired and Free, Fairy's Tale, Firebirds and Elves, and the Shoemaker. Chantal is also the festival director of the Irish Ariel Dance Festival. In this interview, Chantal and I talk about two particular people who have been on the podcast in the past, and I wanted to go ahead and let you guys know that if you're interested in learning more about how the circus and aerial dance worlds kind of weave together in all these different ways, you can hear about all of the different perspectives, not only in Chantal's interview, but on Sarah Poole's interview. She's on episode 58. And if you go all the way back to episode 9, oh my gosh, like 1,000 years ago, you can hear my interview with Fred Debb. Here's my interview with Chantal McCormick. Chantal McCormick, welcome to the Artist Athlete Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you. Can you tell the people at home who you are and what you do?
I'm Chantal McCormick Daly because I'm married and my husband is Jim Daly and we run Fidget Feet together. And Fidget Feet is now 22 years old. I'm a dancer by nature and by training that got involved in circus. And I just love aerial dance. I'm Irish. I'm very small and have red hair that's dyed. But it was very important for me to move home to Ireland and bring what I've been learning in the UK because there was no professional dance schools or even circus schools in Ireland. So I wanted to come home. And when I came home to Ireland, then it was important to me to build aerial dance in Ireland. And now I run Fidget Feet, which is an aerial dance theatre company, which does indoor, outdoor, basically anything, fly on anything, cranes, whatever the hell we can do to be happy. And then I run the Irish Aerial Dance Festival in Donegal, which is my hometown. And that's 10 years old. And that is to, the reason to do that was to bring badass international teachers to Ireland to be able to support Irish people that wanted to become an aerialist or, a hobbyist or a professional, because I wanted to hire Irish-based artists. And then for my sins, I decided after going to Montreal and seeing Cirque du Soleil headquarters that, hey, Fidget Feet should have a little slice of something in Ireland. So then I opened the Irish Ariel Creation Centre at the same time as my daughter was born. And that's 5.5 years that we're here in Limerick in this warehouse space. We have a capital grant that we hope that we can improve everything here. So that's me in a wee nutshell.
That's amazing. Well done. That was like less than a minute being in a nutshell. Wow.
I've practiced. I've had many little interviews during this lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm interested in where you started your training. You were a dancer, you say. When did your dance start? It was ballet, I assume?
No, God, no.
I don't know why I assume.
Yeah,
great.
Babes, no, definitely not. So basically, it's hilarious because I think for those of you listeners that have never been to Donegal, Donegal is the back end of Ireland. It's like the county that's been forgotten. So I'm 46 now. So when I grew up, I knew from the age of 2, and my parents knew from the age of 2 that I wanted to be a dancer, but there was nothing and nowhere for me to be sent to. So I kind of had to wait until I was maybe about 16, and I started to get to do some dance classes in Letterkenny and in Northern Ireland in Derry. And I would have seen my first ever dance company when I was in Strabane. And that was the moment I went, yes, this is for me. So then the only thing that I could do, I had to wait till I was 18. And then I was able to do a dance course in Dublin. And then, like most kids in Ireland at that stage, then we always had to look to the UK. So then I did my dance training in the UK and was lucky enough to get to the London School of Contemporary Dance, for my last 1.5 years of training. And it was there that I got introduced to circus. For any of you ravers out there, I was a big raver. And so I would have been going to a lot of the clubs, and my husband, Jim Daly, was with a band called Loop Guru, and we connected while I was in dance college. So he would have taken me to some stuff. So at those days, there was a lot of like stilt walking in clubs and a lot of like really crazy kind of shit going on. And I would have met somebody who did that. And I was like, oh my God, can I do this? So then through her name was Bryony Plant, I got involved with this crew in London that was starting Ariel, doing cocoons and in clubs and stuff like that. So when I did my first gig with them on the air as a dancer, I was like, oh my fucking God, this is like the best thing in the world. I love rave. I'm in the air. I'm going fucking mental, and it's the best thing ever. So it was like, that was it. That was the thread then. And then it was, I'd finished my dance training and I'd finished college and I stayed in London, and Circus Base was there, which was so amazing. So I was able to go there and learn trapeze and rope. And then there was an audition with a company called Scarabaeus Theatre that still goes in London. They're still very close, dear friends of mine. And I went for that audition, and thank God I got the work, because that was really when my aerial dance career started, because with them, we trained on vertical dance, we trained on aerial. You know, I got in to the crew of London, which meant that I was able to get gigs with Dream Engine and go to Circus Base. And it was a really exciting time in the UK then. And then it was always my desire. So every year I go home to Ireland, create a show. I mean, when I was still in dance college, oh yeah, this is hilarious. So I'm still in dance college and I'm like, right, we need to go to Ireland and tour. So I called the local Donegal arts officer, Trailock, who still is the Donegal arts officer and supports me. And I was like, I've got a show with 7 women, stilt walking and dance. Can I tour Ireland? And he's going, yeah, we'll book you. And then call this person, this person, this person. So the 7 of us went with Bryony Plant in her van over to Ireland in a ferry. We didn't even have money to pay for the ferry, so we had to borrow it from one of our parents. And then we toured Ireland. And that was the beginning of Fidget Feet, where I was like, right, this is what I have to do. So it was a real balance of being in the UK, being surrounded and being connected to all of the circus aerial dance that was happening in the UK with Scarabaeus Theatre, and then constantly trying to find a way to create Fidget Feet work and bring it home to Ireland.
Sounds like London has, I mean, I've been to London, and it impressed me so much, the wealth of resources they have for the arts. And not just like what we would think of as like high art, but a lot of what you're talking about, contemporary art, raves, these kinds of spaces where it's just like, it's not, I would say, easy to be an artist, but at the same time, it's easy to be an artist.
Well, yeah, because London, for me, like I trained in Newcastle first in the UK. And then when I got to London, it kind of exploded for me. And as a young artist, it was a perfect place to be, because you could go and see so much work, you could rave, you could do all these things. But financially, it was very difficult. But I was lucky because we were living on a boat or living cheaply. For me personally, it's a young person's city as an artist. But then it became really apparent for me to really make Fidget Feet work, I couldn't be a small fish in a big pond. I needed to be a big fish. So that's when we then...
Interesting.
Yeah. So then I moved back to Newcastle because I'd studied there, they kind of knew of me as a young dance student, and then having this aerial dance work, they really supported me in Newcastle. Sandra Chaplin from Customs House, Janet Archer from Dance City, and we opened the Sage in Gateshead. We did like aerial, like 30 meters high or 40 meters high, and we were on silks. And
wait, 40 meters?
Yeah, man. It was rigged at 40 meters, and
Why were you so high up?
Because
did people use binoculars to see you? What is that?
The Sage, it was like a music kind of center. It was a new building that was opened in Newcastle, and the building was that high, so the rigging points were that point. So for that place, so I think it was 30 meters. So the fabrics that we had to buy was that there was 3 of us, and it was rigged from that point. And then the music was specially composed by live musicians that were dispersed, but their music just traveled because it was made for music. And then we had to create a piece. So I think we would have climbed maybe 15 meters, but we fucking shat our pants, because it was the early days, but it was brilliant. But it was a piece that we performed, and one of the guys that works for the Arts Council in the north of the UK came to see it. And his words was, why do you want to be like a small fish in a big pond? Why don't you be a big fish here? And it was from that I was like, right, if we move up to the UK, to Newcastle, we'll get supported by the Arts Council. And that's what we did. And at the same time as that, I was applying to the Arts Council in Ireland every year to try and get funding, because we couldn't move home to Ireland because circus wasn't a recognised art form yet. But I so wanted to be the first aerial dance company in Ireland. But I kept applying through the dance, and I kept getting no. And then when circus became recognised, Verena Cornwall was the arts officer there. She helped me with an application, and then once we got our first successful application, we were like, right, let's move home.
You know what? I can't help but notice that a lot of your talking, and when I was a part of the Irish Aerial Dance Festival online this year, which, by the way, thank you for that. Super fun.
It was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of this talk of funding has been really interesting for me. And even like in the 10 minutes we've been talking, you've mentioned so much about arts officers that you knew and could just call up, or these organizations. How much of your work over these years has been creating, and how much of it has been finding funding?
That's the $1 million question.
Well, I just can't help because in like everything you've described these awesome raves, you've described these really high venues. And then within all of that, it also has seemed to be this question of resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I'm one of the lucky ones in the sense that I'm an artist first, and then I'm a badass entrepreneur, kind of creative cultural leader. So I've always had this balance of having a really good business mind and a really good artistic, and then a really big passion and drive to make shit happen. So it was like, we are so blessed being in Ireland and the UK that we have arts councils and that we have local authorities. So local authorities are county by counties. So they would have their own separate money that the arts council would have. So as an artist, you can apply to all these different places for funding.
But CIRCUS isn't funded. You
CIRCUS,
said, or you had to wait for it?
Yeah, I had to wait. So the way that it works in Ireland is you have like theatre is funded, dance was funded, all these different things were recognised and funded through the Arts Council. But CIRCUS as an art form it didn't have its little department, or it wasn't part of what they would fund. So I had to wait until...
So I have a question about this, which is you kind of use circus and aerial dance interchangeably.
Oh,
it sounds like. Some people do, some people don't. I'm here for it all. But why wouldn't you just apply under dance?
We did. So that was what I was doing. So because in the Irish Arts Council, it was just dance, and I identified myself as a dancer who trained in circus arts. And so at this point, we still didn't have the term aerial dance yet. You know, it was still circus. I trained as a dancer, and I've been training as a circus artist, and I applied to the Irish Arts Council through the dance department, but I never got successful. The feedback was, because I was like, I'm going to make a piece that's going to involve dance, circus, music, live film, projections, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, what? It was just because you have to understand in those days, it was like, when was it? 1998 was the first year that I toured Ireland. So no one would have seen stilt walking, circusy dance performance then. So that was the time. So the Arts Council had never really seen all these forms mixed together. So it wasn't until the traditional circuses of Ireland lobbied the government to recognise them and to fund them that then circus became a recognised art form. So when we were successful in 2007, there was 3 traditional circuses also funded, and then Fidget Feet, we were the first contemporary circus company. So we're funded as a circus company in Ireland, and we're seen as a circus company. But I relate to us as an aerial dance company. But we tick all boxes. We're circus, we're aerial dance, we're vertical dance, we're spectacle, we're like whatever the hell you want us to be. We can be. We're just artists. We're just creative people that don't want to be pigeonholed, but sometimes it's advantageous to be able to tick certain boxes so that you can get the funding that you need and then make the work that you love.
Interesting. And so what kind of work, I have to admit, I knew who you were for a very long time, ever since I think Fred Deb mentioned your name for the first time.
Yeah, and I listened. That's what was so nice, because Sarah Poole is a very close friend of mine too. So
Okay.
I listened to Sarah Poole's first, and we both met at the Aerial Dance Festival in America, in Colorado. And
Yes.
and we both met Fred that same time. So then I listened to Fred's podcast too, and it was like, oh, there's Fred too, because we did a project together, Madam Silk. So all the lines kind of connected.
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about this podcast too, is that there's like this, I didn't do it this way, but obviously like the circus and aerial dance communities are small and overlapping. And so it's like I get different versions of everyone's stories, just like through the years of talking to everyone. You kind of see how people connect and mesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about Boulder and what the American Aerial Dance Festival was, why you went, who you met?
Yeah. So it was a real eye-opener for me. So I can't remember. I think it was 2005. I think it was 2005. I received a travel and training award. So again, this is from the Irish Arts Council, to travel to America and take part in the festival. Now, when I was out there, I met so many of the American artists that were like, what? You've been funded to come here to pay for all your classes? And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, but yes. But it was amazing.
Oh, you shouldn't apologize for that.
I know, but I just feel it's so hard in all the different countries, and we're so blessed that Ireland supports the artists and supported me, you know?
I guess. I just kind of feel like we should all kind of take it on as like, we have a right to be funded.
100 fucking %.
And it's, you know, like, it's like, not like, oh, you're so lucky. It's like, oh, it's bullshit that I'm not funded.
Yeah.
Let's
get
our government up to speed,
lovely,
because Ireland's got it. But anyway.
Yeah. And I
totally different tangent.
no, but I'm totally there. And there's so many times our close friend Rachel Strickland, I've tried to kidnap her in Ireland. I'm like, you could be funded here, stay here. But anyway, so back to your question. So yes, the Ariel Dance Festival there was so amazing. I was so I just booked into so many classes, and I tasted so many things. And it was there that I met Sarah Poole and Fred Deb, and I met the twins, Elsie and Serenity. I had met them previously. But also the thing that blew me away the most was just like, wow, because I had only started the idea of like, okay, I trained as a dancer and I've trained as a circus artist, but I don't feel like I belong in dance world anymore. And I don't feel like I really fundamentally belong in the circus world, because I didn't do any circus training. But I feel happiest when I am meshing what I know in the air with what I know on the ground as a dancer. So this is before the term aerial dance. I even knew it, or anyone in London was using it. And so I was working with a rigger called Jonathan Campbell that did counterweight, which so, you know, then we were the first people that were kind of playing with it. So we really played with the dance and the harness work and the aerial and stuff. So, and then there was other people like Lindsay Butcher from the UK, you know, and Tina Carter. So Tina Carter would be the first person that I took a class in Circus Space, and she even had the term, I think she had the term aerial dance. And I was like, wow. And I did her class and I was like, wow. And she was really circus and I was really more dance. So it was like I was kind of trying to find my identity of who I am and what I am. So going to the Aerial Dance Festival was like, okay, what is this term and what does this really mean? And what are they doing in America? Because Nancy had been running this festival for a long time. So it was really amazing to get to taste everything, to see what it is, connect to other people around the world and really be like, yes, I am an aerial dancer and this is what I identify with most. And then being there, it was so inspirational because I was like, oh my God, how amazing would this be if it could happen in Ireland and England? Because I was still living in between England and Ireland at that time. And so then I came back to the UK and I asked Fred Deb and Jacques if they would come and teach. So we started to do smaller little events in Newcastle in Ireland, and Sarah Poole came to teach at a certain point. And then when I got the connection with the Donegal County Council to fund me, then I was like, right, let's run this aerial dance festival. And as Fred said in her podcast, it was whenever Fred, Lindsay and myself, we all kind of started at the same time. and we had no idea how it was going to go or how big it was going to become. And it was really feeling so inspired at Nancy's festival and just wanting to grow the community and have it in Ireland. And now, like when I started, I think it was a week and I think we had 30 or 40 people. And if it would have happened this year, we were aiming to have like maybe about 220 people from all over the world. And we have about 20 teachers. So it really has grown. And it wouldn't have been like that had I not gone to Nancy's festival. And I think what's important is the Irish festival, we just have really good crack. Like, Irish people have a lot of crack. And crack.
Can you define crack?
Yes, C-R-A-I-C. It's an Irish terminology of like, we have loads of fun. So it's part of our nature. Irish people have loads of fun. So we play hard and we work hard. So I think when people come to the Irish festival, they feel that energy. And also I have a spiritual teacher. His name is Adi Da. And so his teaching is very much about sacred art and it's about the heart and about healing. So everything that I do is about building this community that's more about heartfelt connection and not about egos. So I think when people come to our festival, they really feel that generosity. They feel that community. They feel that we're all here to learn and share and we're not holding on to, our ideas and scared of this and that. And I've been really, really pushing that idea a lot. So I really feel, the Irish aerial community is very nice and home-based and our festival has that energy.
So you host the Irish Aerial Dance Festival. What do you do for the other 11 months out of the
year? Yeah. So,
because I know that you do way more. I don't want to pigeonhole you in just the festival, even though it's an amazing
it is
feature.
But it's like the festival is physically only 2.5 weeks of our year. And then there is preparation before. So the rest of the time, like I teach at Lindsay's festival a lot as well. And I do the creative labs as part of it. So that's really important to me. But the rest of the time with Fidget Feet is we perform and we make shows. So a lot of
And what is your creative? I wanted to dig into this a little bit. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, work away.
Oh, okay. Something that struck me when you were talking about your time in London and you were doing still walking and you wanted projections and you were up really high and all of this is it seems like it was just this expanse of like media of stuff, which is super cool. But I'm interested to know, like, if you have no limits, you have no boundaries, you have obviously not unlimited funding, but access to funding. What parameters or what is your methodology then of kind of whittling down and making what you want to make?
The reason why I have Fidget Feet is because I have so many fucking creative ideas and I just want to do them all. So it's great to have so many ideas, but it's impossible to do them all, even though I try. So like what might happen is like I'll come up with a visual idea in my head or I'll kind of be improvising on a piece of kit or I'll meet somebody and I'll be inspired by them and I'll want to collaborate with them. So there's no kind of process necessarily to how it happens. It just kind of happens. So that's the creative side of things. And then because of the business side of things, even though we do have funding, and even though it sounds like Fidget Feet and the festival and the center is, doing really, really well, but we're still on very, very minimal funding. So it allows me to be employed full time. And then it allows me to have one person to work with me full time on Fidget Feet and one person to work with me full time on the Creation Center. So I do end up in the last 6 years doing more admin and more management side of things, which is really frustrating on one side because it's not fully balanced with what I want to do creatively. So I'm really, after the COVID lockdown, I'm really looking into different ways in which that I can be more creative because that's what I'm on this earth to do. Like I'm here to be creative. I'm here to connect with artists. I'm here to mentor. I'm here to do all those things. But to make those shit happen, I have to be the administrator as well. For instance, the last show that we just made was Bingo Wings. So the idea came from me having a memory of going to the bingo with my nanny and granddad when I was really young up in Donegal. And I was what I remember is that feeling of community. And I think what I always try and think about is like, what message do I want to share with the world, or what things do I want to change? So I really noticed that the connection with older people and younger people is so different now than what I remembered when I was with my nanny and granddad. And I felt that that was sad, and that I really wanted to do something to change that. So the Bingo Wings idea was to create a project that could bring those two communities together and then share that project. So then I came up with the idea of like, okay, well, we need to do residencies. We need to go out into the community and offer workshops in Ariel and playing bingo and singing and doing all of that with teenagers and young people. And then we would use that as a way of getting people interested in the show so that they would come to the show. But also we wanted to work with some of the community and have them in the show. And then I was like, right, we need to make a badass, one of our biggest indoor shows ever, based on playing bingo, interspersed with circus and dance and crazy shit. And the medium of theatre in Ireland is very strong, and it's very well respected. And I really felt like for circus to be more respected in Ireland, if we could really mix it with theatre, that it would raise the profile of circus and what we can do, raise the profile of aerial dance, and hope that we could get more funding or be recognised more. So I really wanted to mix theatre with it, and I didn't want to do that on my own. So then I collaborated with an extraordinary Irish-based theatre director and writer, Joe and Tom, who are both partners. So a lot of the work that Fidget Feet does is collaboration. So then we made this big show, and I wanted to be in the show because I'm sad when I don't get to be in all the shows. So I really needed a director to be the outside eye. And I'm a little bit older now, so my aerial skills won't be as polished as some of the badass new aerialists that I've helped to mentor and train. So it was kind of like Bingo Wings was a mishmash of loads of my strategic ideas, my heartfelt ideas, how to connect to the community, how to make this project that we can do all of it. And it took me 8 years to get the funding to make the show. So that'll kind of give you a sense of like, even though
that's a great example. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So even though it's really great here and we are supported and we are funded, but still for me as an established artist, 22 years bringing aerial dance to Ireland, to be able to fund, create, perform and tour a show can still take up to 8 years. So it demands a lot of, for me, not to give up, to trust that the idea is good enough. And then I literally, oh my God, Shannon, I just talk to anyone who'll fucking listen about the idea until it drops into the palm of a funder that goes, okay, or a venue manager or a producer or anyone that goes, this is a good idea. And then I use a lot of my grey area working outside of the box of how then to get the funding to make it. And then it's my artists, it's my Fidget Feet family. They are just so incredible. They've worked so hard and we just work our ass off. So for Bingo Wings, I think we only had about 5 weeks to make the show. And it was stressful as hell for everybody because the limit.
So wait a second. So it took 8 years to get the funding.
Yeah.
And then it took 5 weeks of because when you said 8 years initially, I was like, oh, wow. Like, what would it be like to creatively work on a project for 8 years? Like, what would that look like at the end of it? But it wasn't that.
No, this was literally just taking 8 years to get the funding. So what had happened was, first of all, I was able to persuade someone to give me a little bit of research and development money. So then that allowed me and Jim and somebody else to go into the community and start doing a little bit of research of what that could happen. But before I even got this research money, I would have applied to 5 or 6 different funds and talked to 5 or 6 different venues, and we would have got rejections. So the first time we actually got some research money, we're like, okay, so then we would research it. Then we got a little bit more research money. So then I was able to get the theatre director and the writer involved because they hadn't worked with circus and aerial dance before. So then they came into the Creation Centre and we had a 1 week research and development so they could get to know what we are as artists, what we can do and what they can do. And then we got another no which meant that we couldn't make the show that year. So then we had to let it lie for another year. And then I applied to a different fund, and then we managed to get the funding. So then we're able to do the project. So,
okay.
And then the fund.
I guess I'm just thinking, like, when I have ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe this is just me personally, if I let them sit out at air temperature for too long, they kind of start to rot and die. You know, like, I'm the type where, like, I also have a lot of creative ideas, but if I don't act on them, they stop becoming exciting and they stop becoming like, I'll have another one and be like, oh, right, I've got to move on to the next thing. And it sounds like you have some kind of sustained focus or something that, like, keeps these ideas going. Like, as you're waiting in these 8 years, is it just this idea that you're working on and chewing on? And
no, I'll have multitude. Like, that's the thing. It's kind of like currently in my brain, I've always got about 4 or 5 shows that I'm wanting to make, always.
Okay.
And so I'm simultaneously trying to figure out how to find the funding to make those shows. And simultaneously, we already have loads of shows already made that I'm trying to figure out how we can sell them and get them out. So it's kind of like, and I think, like what I mentioned a little bit before, it's like I really believe that art is healing, and I really trust in the universe, and I just trust in that divine magic. So I never okay, it's been 8 years. Obviously, you know, the idea is not going to work, so I have to let it go. I'm like, no, this idea is speaking to my heart. But until I can get the funding, I can't get the bodies into the studio to see if the idea is actually going to work. You know, I think out of the whole of my Fidget Feet career, there was only one time that we did some research and development. And at the end of those 2 weeks, we were like, yeah, that show idea doesn't work, so let's just throw that away.
What was the idea that didn't work?
It was, what was it we're doing? Oh, we were making a show for young audiences, and we really thought that Rumpelstiltskin was going to be a really good show to create. And we tried with Jean-Paul Zaccarini, a good friend of ours, and we tried, I think it was a week research or 2 weeks research, and we really tried, and we tried loads of different things, and it was great fun or whatever. But at the end of it, it was like, I don't think this is the show that's going to work. But out of that, we then, through mentorship with someone that makes work for young audiences, Lally Morrissey, mentored me. I then was like, well, this is the show that I kind of wanted to make, The Elves and the Shoemaker, which was interactive, immersive, but I was scared to make it because I didn't know if the venues in Ireland would want it because it was very different. But Lally gave me so much courage, and then we made Elves and the Shoemaker, and it was like a hit for us. So it's kind of funny that you're saying, so when I get to create and do what's in my heart, and always have a message in it, like a heartfelt message or connecting to people, then it tends to work. Or if in that one time it didn't, but then it allowed me to find another one, you know? So
Sure.
I just love playing. So before I had the stress of running a company, a festival, and a center, you know, anyone could throw me in any situation, like, because I come from contact dance and improvisation, and give me an apparatus and I'll be fucking happy for hours just playing around. So it's that curiosity and that play that holds me, I think.
Because we've been talking about kind of long-term or very large-scale projects. I feel like you're a very large-scale person.
Yeah. What is it? I don't know. A friend, one of their fidget feeders, Ronan Brady, you met him at the thing. He's written a book. And so I think his words is, I can't remember exactly what he called me, but a one-woman tornado. I can't remember, something like that. And I was like, fucking love that. Because that's what I am. I try and think of small ideas. And the only show I think that was a small idea was Hang On. It was me and Lee Claydon and with Jim and Sarah Poole. That's how we got to Montreal first, because me and Sarah connected, and then I got to Montreal and I reconnected with her, and I was like, oh, and she came to, that's what it is. She came to Ireland and brought an aerial dance trapeze, but it wasn't one of these wooden aerial dance trapezes in America. It was a real fucking trapeze with like a metal. And I was like, oh, no, I don't do trapeze, Sarah. Like, I did it in the old days, you know, in circus space, and I don't like it. And she was like, well, this spins, Chantal. And I was like, oh, let me just play on that. And then I fucking loved it. So then I was like, right, I need to make a small show. And I was like, Sarah, can we come to Montreal, me and Lee, and create on a trapeze? And it's hilarious. Like, before we had the Creation Center, we were like living in Longford, and me and Lee was rehearsing in this tiny church hall that was freezing cold. I'm talking like you're inside and it's colder than outside, and the walls didn't meet the ground, and we didn't have the large trapeze that Sarah Poole had said that we should get. We got someone in Montreal to make it, so we're just using a wee tiny one, and me and him's flying around trying to do contact dance in this tiny trapeze, like, when I think about it. But anyway, to answer your question, I can make small work, and Hang On was the only small piece of work I think we've made, and everything else is big, because we make big, massive shows off cranes. Like, that took me years to be able to finally in Dublin have 2 cranes and do vertical dance and wall and video mapping. And, that took a year of talking to the bookers. But in the end of the day, do you know how many days we had to rehearse on site? 2.
I was going to guess that. Yeah, that was. But actually, my question was not going to be about making small work.
Okay, cool.
My question was going to be, or is now, what small things do you do daily that enable you to make big work? I know, right? That's a good question.
It's a good question.
But yeah, I mean, I just wrote down like daily practice. Because,
yeah.
Like not every day is a day where you're in rehearsal. It sounds like most days look very different.
Yeah.
So what does a one-woman tornado do every day?
A one-woman.
What does a tornado eat for breakfast?
A tornado. I love it. Yeah. So,
hard-hitting question.
Yeah. So, well, like now I'm a mom, it's a whole different tornado, because Yolandi is part of my tornado life. So, and she's named after Yolandi from Diantwood. So if anyone's out there, if anyone wants to be in Fidget Feet or come to the festival, you need to listen to Diantwood, because we fucking love Diantwood, the music and everything. So
links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, and so we named Yolandi after her. So she is like a little mini tornado as well. So my daily practice is, now that we have the Creation Center, I come into the Creation Center's office and I work. But then if Fidget Feet is in the studio making work, then I'll be in there. Or if we're off touring around Ireland, I sometimes send teams off and I don't go, but sometimes I do. And then if we go international prior to COVID, then I'm like, I'm fucking going. I don't care. So I think the one woman tornado tries to do everything, Shannon. So that's probably why I'm very tired all the time. But over the COVID, I've really come up with a new plan for Fidget Feet.
Oh, yeah.
To help my daily practice. Over the COVID, I've really missed my artists so much. Like, some artists have kind of created solo things during the lockdown or whatever, but I just couldn't come into the Creation Center and try and do something on my own. It just didn't feel right. I need my I need my friends. I need my Fidget Feeters to create together. That's what I learned. So I really want Fidget Feet. I've always said we're an artist-led company. So I really want to be able to have some Fidget Feet aerialists with me full time, and that together we would do the admin and the creating together. Do you know what I mean? Because currently what I've always done is had it be that it's me and like an arts worker in the office, which has been brilliant. But it just always means that I only have my artists when I can afford to have them for 2 weeks rehearsal or 5 weeks or a gig here or a gig there. So I really want to see, and I dream of my daily life being that I wake up and I've got my Fidget Feet artists in the Creation Center and we do our value warm up or we do a dance warm up together. We do some admin and then I start working creatively on whatever creative idea that I have for whatever show or for rehearsing. And that's what I dream of, because what's so fucking crazy is the reason why I've done all this is because I want to be performing. I want to be creating all the time. So I had to create the festival because there was no one in Ireland I could hire. And then I had to create the Creation Center because we had nowhere that we could make. So now that I have all these things those things hopefully can be sustained and supported. So then now I can really look at myself as the aerial dance circus director that I know I can be. I just don't feel like I've been able to really be that.
Yeah.
Like I know I can. And I'm not worried because I'm 46, which is actually young. And the last project that I did with Bingo Wings, like working under the direction of Jo, I learned a lot of her style of directing. And it inspired me more. And a lot of my fidget feeders are always telling me, Chantal, you give so much to everybody and you do so much for the aerial community. And, you know, you don't even realize how good of a director and a choreographer you are. Like you need to do this. So I'm really, during the lockdown, really feel that that's my calling. And I really want to somehow make that work, that my daily practice is actually being creative with my fidget feed artists every day, even if it's just an hour. And that the admin, but the thing is I fucking love doing admin, which is so weird. I love doing budgets. I love work. You know, I like it all. I like learning.
I think that that's a very common, people who start things or people of the, like tornadoes often operate kind of solo and suck up everything and like are not artistic tornadoes. I think are not destructive. They're great creative forces.
Yeah.
But I do notice this a lot, that work kind of solo and take it upon themselves to be the force.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of that work kind of miss out on what they set out to do in the first place, because there's so much else to kind of have to contend with in order to make the thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's very cool that you've had some time. I mean, I think it's unfortunate under the circumstances, but pretty cool that you've had the time to kind of reflect and conceive of a model that allows you to show up more as a creator and less as like a creator of money for your company, you know?
Yeah, more time to create on bodies and really find out who I am as an aerial dance director, you know, an aerial dance circus director, and what shows can I make that has time to really breathe. And like what I do as a creative director for Fidget Feet and the festival and the Creation Center is still really creative as well. And it's just,
totally,
you know, but it's also for the Creation Center to sustain, it really needs somebody else that has my passion and my force, but loves doing all of the administrative stuff that needs to be done. And then the center will flourish.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you, though, because I think that people who create things and people who sustain things, those are often two separate skill sets.
Mm-hmm. And I'm the creator.
I feel like now this has turned into like a business discussion.
Yeah, no.
Which I love. Yeah. But do you know what I mean? Like, starting something is the hardest thing. Well, and if you have the energetic, like, ability to do that, once you have the systems in place, I don't know if you need someone who has the passion that you do to run it.
Well, I think so, because the thing is it's like, it's really easy for me. Well, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm good at starting things. I'm not good at putting systems in place that someone else can then run them. But when I'm saying the same passion as me, it's like, you know, shit, it's hard to make shit happen. And the only reason a lot of this shit has happened is because of my passion and my drive. And anybody I meet, they're like, oh my God, we want to help Chantal. Like, it's dripping off me how much passion that I have. So it's kind of like that. Like, the Creation Center has so much potential. Like, we have a capital grant, and the meeting that I just had today was about how we're going to spend the capital grant, what the designs are going to be, you know, and that's all great. But for me to be able to just juggle the festival, the company, and the Creation Center and the capital grant, it's a lot. And before lockdown, everybody was worried about me. You know, they're like, Chantal, you've taken on too much. And I'm like, I know, but no one else is doing it. So I need to do it because it's going to serve the long term. And the long term dream is that I have a fidget beat company with amazing artists that we can have a daily practice of creating work every day. And we're funded. I mean, I listened to your podcast this morning with the Chinese guy, you know, and it really struck me that thing of like being an artist and being paid full time, you know? And I'm one of the lucky ones. I am.
I think under the circumstances that he was under, though,
is different. Yes.
Yeah, the creative ideas are modulated by the people paying you.
Yes, and that's the thing, that we as Westerners have the ability to be individuals and to be able to be creative and to do it as artists. A lot of us are doing it for the greater cause. Like, I really feel like I might be an individual, but I'm doing it for the greater cause, for the aerial community, and then from the aerial community to the audiences, and then from the audiences to, you know, humankind, of like, you know, what can change. But I mean, that idea of like being an artist and having a full-time wage, you know, it's, why not? And I mean, I'm able to have a full-time wage because I'm doing all the business side. So what happened to me is, you know, I got pregnant with Yolandi, and I was like, right, I've been working my ass off. I never paid myself a full-time wage. And then I wasn't able to get any maternity. Like in Ireland, you can get maternity, but I wasn't able to get any maternity money. And that's when the penny dropped that I need Fidget Feet to be paying me a wage. Otherwise, how can I sustain this? So now my thing is like, how.
So what were you doing with money before? Did you also have like a waitressing job or something?
No, I just worked for Fidget Feet, but I only paid myself when I would perform or when I would teach, the same as the artist. So all the admin that I didn't pay myself for. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's pretty daft. But I was just, you know, it's like, we've only got this amount of money and we need to do this, this, and this, and this. You know, I'll just do it all. And then when I had Yolandi, it was like, no, this is wrong. I need to be on a wage. And it was a big shift for me to accept that. And now it's, you know, I'm secure. So now I'm like, okay, what is it that we can do in the arts community that can have more artists employed as artists? And at the moment, the only way I think of is that we balance the admin with the art. But also, you know, there's incredible, amazing arts workers out there that, you know, eventually I would like Fidget Feet to be able to afford to have a producer too. You know, it's not, I'm replacing one from the other. It's just more that I've tried this in the hope that I can afford to have aerialists full time, and it's not worked. So now I'm going to try the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
Chantal.
Yes.
What advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of your career?
Let me just think about it, because I know that you've been asking this, because I've heard them, and I didn't even plan what I was going to say, because it's nice to feel it in the moment. Because I feel like I honestly feel that I couldn't have done anything that much different. In a way, I really trust the journey that I've been on. It's funny because the things that I've done as an artist that maybe was hard, what I like to do with all the younger artists that's coming up now is make it easier for them. So it's like I basically throw my heart and my soul out to all the artists I mentor and go, look, this is what I did. But if I was you, I would do this, this, and this. So, you know, it was like going to Montreal when I was 12. I can't remember how old I was, but, you know, that was intense, because you've seen all these extraordinary, highly skilled aerialists. And I was already, you know, kind of mid-career. So now any of the younger aerialists, I'm like, you know, don't wait, just fucking go. Don't be scared. Like, go places, get the training, do whatever you need. So maybe because sometimes I kind of feel like, you know, I did 5 years of dance training. And then when I started to get into circus, I was like, oh my God, I cannot go back to school and study circus. But I tried to find a course that I could have done for 2 or 3 months or 5 months, you know, to really get immersed in it technically. And I never had that. So I wished that I had that, and I didn't. And so I'm always telling other aerialists to have that. So I think I would have told my younger self, like, you know, go to fucking Montreal sooner and train with some badass coaches and reach your higher technical ability. I think I would have said that, but, you know, I was searching, but I didn't know. And then, and I think maybe, because I say this to a lot of people that are wanting to start companies, I'm like, don't start a company. Or people that want to open a creation center or build a studio, don't fucking open a creation center or build a studio, just because it takes you away from your art form. so much. So if you are going to do it, know that that's the reason, and maybe find a young person that's like you, that's as passionate about it as you are, but is, an arts worker or a producer or and, be a business couple. So because you're really the creative person, and then that person is really the ad side, but you're both equally invested in the project, and you can both equally work. So I think those are like the two things of like, and not to be in a hurry. I think it's easy for me now because I'm 45, but when I was younger, I was so fucking impatient. And it's like things have come to me. It's just taken a long time, longer than you think. So now when I'm funded, I can plan 3-4 years in advance. But when I wasn't on a wage and I wasn't funded, it was like, what the hell how am I going to make this happen? So there was a lot of impatience. And I think I'm really intuitive and listening to the signs that the universe gives, because once you're in line with your heart, and once you're in line with your spiritual practice or the divine, which if you believe that to be creativity, and once you're in line with why you're really here, and you're really quietly listening to all the little signs and all the little magic moments that are happening in a conversation or when you're meeting somewhere, it's like the path is theirs. As long as you have that listening for it, then the path will take you to where you dream to go.
That's lovely. Chantal, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today.
It's been awesome. Thanks, Shannon.
That was my interview with Chantal McCormick. I was reflecting the other day on how every week I send my editor, Allison, a new podcast interview. And every week I kind of joke, like, here's the accent of the week, because I have guests from all over the world. And what I love about having these guests from everywhere is it gives us an understanding of how circus is interpreted in other cultures and other countries. And by proxy, how most art is interpreted and valued in other cultures and other countries. And I think it's really important to hear that, especially if you are from the US, which most of my listenership is, because in other countries, there's a lot more funding readily available for the arts. And that's not to say that it's not still difficult to get the funding. You still have to work for it. If you have ideas that there is some resource that you can tap into to signify that the government and the society that you're living in endows your work with some importance. And I just want to say that to all American artists, because I don't think we hear it enough, because when things aren't funded or monetarily supported, it can feel like they have no value. But just because your work isn't valued in your country does not mean that it is not valuable. This interview made me simultaneously really, really happy and really, really sad. It made me really happy because it was amazing to talk to Chantal. She is such a tornado, as she describes herself, or as Ronan Brady describes her in this interview. But what made me sad, going back to this idea of funding, is that all of this tornado energy, all of this amazing brilliance that comes through this woman, all of that has really been allocated to finding ways to pay for people to make the work that needs to be made. And this is a really important reality of being an artist, is you're constantly trying to find ways to make money so that you can make your art, because the art, yes, it can be profitable in and of itself, but we don't make art to make money. We make art because the process of making something that you see in your head and you see in your heart is so much more valuable, so much more thrilling, and such a greater reward than money could ever buy anyone. And what it does for society, as Chantal says in this interview, what it does when you're creating something, the impact that has on the artists who are participating in that creation, the impact that has on the audience that sees the artists who are a part of that creation, and the impact it has on every person who every audience member touches, who sees the artists who are a part of that creation, is so much greater than just the business of it all. But in order to do all that, you have to understand the business of it all. And that's the constant catch-22 that a lot of artists like Miss McCormick, that's what she's up against constantly. And I don't have the solution for it, but I want to not normalize it. I want people out there to know that there is another way of living. There is another way of doing this that doesn't involve incredibly bright artistic minds always having to put their creative juices, their creative energy into getting money. And instead, they can put their creative juices and resources into making things that we can all see and love and enjoy and see ourselves in. To learn more about Chantal McCormick and her aerial dance theater company, Fidget Feet, you can go to fidgetfeet.com, and they're on Instagram, Fidget Feet Aerial Dance Theater. For aerial training tips and inspiration, you can find me. I am on Instagram at _artist_athlete. I'm on Facebook, The Artist Athlete. I am on TikTok, the _artist_athlete. And if you love what you're listening to, please, please, please go to patreon.com/theartistathlete and become a Patreon. We're taking a break for the first week of September, but we will be back the second week with more episodes for you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk at you in 2 weeks, friends, fans, and enemies. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hi everyone, this is Allie Cooper, owner and coach at the Radical Movement Factory in Santa Cruz, California. I love supporting the Artist Athlete podcast and the amazing community Shannon has created here. I teach rope and fabric and have a circus conditioning app available on iTunes called CIRCUS. You can follow me on Instagram at AllieCooper_, and if you find yourself in California, come say hi.
Hi, I'm Leah. I hate conditioning. So I created the ABCs of Fitness, a fun, full program of active flexibility, body weight, and cardio with personal daily check-ins to motivate you wherever you are and whatever discipline you do. Join our next 19-day check-in challenge and slide into my DMs on Instagram at ABCs of Fitness.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell, and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and sling and rope by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus, and that's why I'm Patreon.
Hello all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.
Hey there, artists and athletes. This is Andy Smith, owner and artistic director at Saltaire Circus School in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And I want to thank you for contributing to the Artist Athlete podcast. If you ever find yourself down in Florida, come check us out. Whether you're an artist, athlete, or someone ordinary just looking to be extraordinary, we got a place for you.